Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's 1 million by 1 million strategy roundtable for entrepreneurs. 1M by 1M, as you know, is the first global virtual accelerator for technology startups in the world. And there aren't that many that operate globally like we do. So it has been a real pleasure working with entrepreneurs from literally all over the world. This is our 694th free mentoring roundtable. We've been doing this since the fall of 2008. It was an experiment with online mentoring, and at the time, virtual was not on every lip. So it was kind of a new thing, and we weren't sure if it would work, but it did work, and over 300,000 people have participated in these sessions over the last, 15 plus years, 17 years. And it's been really, truly fascinating. We're going to do today's session with a conversation with Alex Benik from Encoded Ventures. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So this is the first time we're meeting. Why don't you introduce yourself a little bit and Encoded Ventures, and then we will talk more about your investment thesis and what you're seeing, trends, AI, etc.
Great, yeah. So Encoded is a solo GP fund that I run. It's a little over $18 million, and I invest at the earliest stages, so seed, pre-seed, inception, in infrastructure, mostly software. So that's things like cloud infrastructure, data and AI infrastructure, and cybersecurity. So no software for marketers, no software for dentists, no crypto, no climate. And I've been up and running. I made my first investment out of Encoded last May, so a little bit over a year. And then prior to getting started at Encoded, I was 22 years, both on the West Coast in the Bay Area and here in Boston at Battery Ventures, where I quite literally grew up. It was my second job. And, I grew up before that in telecom and networking. And so I've always been a plumbing guy. So,
Okay. And what is the geographical preference for the venture fund? Are you investing in the Boston area, all over America, international? What is the plan?
yeah, absolutely. So it's very geography agnostic. So I'm based in Boston. I've made 7, soon to be 8 investments. Half of those are in Israel, where I did a lot of work in my time at Battery. The rest are in the US, in New York, in the Bay Area. I have one CEO in London who works with the West Coast team. I'm about to do my first deal that is fully based in Europe, though we'll be setting up go-to-market in the States. So fundamentally, I'm stage focused, early stage. I'm domain focused, infrastructure software, but geography agnostic.
Okay. And what are the check sizes? If you're doing pre-seed, what check size? What do you consider pre-seed? Let's talk a little bit about this stage, double click down on the stage and the check sizes.
Yeah, absolutely. So all of my investments so far have been in the first money in round. Sometimes the semantics around this have gotten a little silly. They call it seed, pre-seed, inception. But my typical check size from Encoded is around plus or minus 500K. I've participated in rounds that have ranged from 3 million to 10 million. So usually there's another institutional seed investor involved. Sometimes I'm helping pull that round together along with the founders, sometimes not, just depends on the situation. But 500K is a good sort of benchmark for the investment from Encoded.
And when you are doing pre-seed first check in, what do you want to see in the deal? What needs to exist?
Yes, so not much exists. So these are definitely companies that are pre-revenue, pre-product. So you're spending a lot of time with founders sometimes to figure out exactly what the focus of the business should be. Sometimes there's, code, working demo, but really you're taking a bet on a founding team and a market and the intersection of those things. You know very well that the product that they tell you they're building might not exactly be the product that the customer buys when they get their first customer. So I'm
Are
pretty
you
sure.
expecting them to do the validation work before coming to you?
It happens a little bit of both ways. So definitely you want founders to have spent time with potential customers to gather the feedback and insight on the market and the kind of shape of the product. I'm also happy to do that with them and put them in touch with people from my network, both sort of in the ideation stage and then, of course, as part of my diligence, which hopefully is mutually beneficial for the founders because they get to talk to somebody who's shaped like a customer and I get to hear that feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so they definitely should have done some of that, unless it's sort of like a inception pre-product thing, and then we can do that together.
Mm-hmm. And first-time entrepreneurs, okay?
Absolutely. I've worked with a broad range. So amongst the eight, I have some first-time founders. I have repeat founders, some of whom I've worked with before during my time at Battery. Um, Solo founders, teams. I'm not very dogmatic about that.
Okay, good. That's refreshing to hear. Now, tell us what you've invested in. Let's do some case studies of what you have invested in. And when you are describing one of these scenarios, talk about what was the situation when they came to you, what attracted you, what made you write that check, and what do you see in those deals?
Yeah, absolutely. So a number of my companies are still sort of in stealth mode, but one that's launched is a company called Config Hub, founded by three founding members, Alexis, Brian Gran, and Jesper. I had actually known one of the founders from his prior startup I'd met at Battery, though we didn't invest. And it was in a domain that I had a lot of context for because I was on the board of a company in the configuration management space called Chef for a long time, from zero revenue through its acquisition. Um, and so I had a good amount of market knowledge and context for the market. And really what got me excited about it was, sort of a world-class team in a space that I knew about. So
Where was the team coming from?
the team, so Alexis had previously been a founder of a startup called Weave, and before that, Spring Source, which was acquired by VMware.
Yeah.
Brian is ex-Google, distinguished engineer, worked on some of the seminal infrastructure orchestration products at Google, Omega, Borg, and then was on the founding Kubernetes team. And Jesper was most recently a GM at Twilio, but previously had been the product manager for Heroku at Salesforce.
Okay.
And so it was a unique founding team.
Yeah.
Um,
Good infrastructure background.
yeah, and to our prior comment, geographically distributed. So Alexis is in London, and Brian and Jesper are in the Bay Area.
And what is the specific problem they're solving? And you'll see why I'm asking this question. There's some kind of trend questions I'm going to ask in this context, but I want to anchor it with what problem are they solving?
Yeah, so the problem is that scaling and operating large scale infrastructure, if you're a SaaS company or a large enterprise, is increasingly challenging, and you have a sprawl and complexity of configuration that could be in products like Chef or Puppet, or probably most well known would be Terraform from HashiCorp, which IBM acquired. You also have secrets and policy, and all these things live in different locations. And so the idea behind Config Hub is really to centralize that in a single database and then build a set of workflows on top. Initially, those workflows are operational and initially in Kubernetes because that is a domain that the team has tremendous experience and credibility in. But in the future, you can see that expanding into security workflows as well as compliance workflows.
Okay. All right. Actually, why don't we do a couple of more examples and then I will ask you the more broad trend questions. And also, as you were talking about your projects. Talk about what role AI is playing in these businesses, and how is that informing your decisions?
Sure. Yeah. Well, even in the config hub example, AI plays a role because currently it's humans doing the typing at the keyboard, doing configuration and deploys and building these automations,
Mm-hmm.
and in the future, it could be agents or agentic operators. There's lots of excitement about uh, agentic SREs and DevOps people. And so those agents will need a source of truth to read out the current state of the infrastructure and then potentially make changes themselves and write back those changes that they make.
Mm-hmm.
So the company is certainly aware that that is a direction that things are headed and is sort of building,
Mm-hmm.
with that in mind.
What This is a broader question.
Sure.
We will do some more examples, but there's a question that is floating around intensely, actually, in the circuits that I travel in, is the pricing question. So if you look at Atlassian, for instance, um, there is there are pricing issues, and there, historically these have been user-based subscription pricing model. So if agents take over a lot of that workflow, and the goal is to have as few people as possible, and in fact reduce the sizes of the workforces, then the user-based pricing model doesn't scale very well anymore. What are you seeing, and what are the thought processes in your companies with pricing?
Yeah, I think it's certainly in a state of change. I would say though that the goal is not necessarily to reduce workforces, but empower users to do more
At the
higher.
moment, yes. At the moment, the market is in domain-specific, human-augmented workflows. That's where the AI market is.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think I'm very familiar with Atlassian. Jira is an incredible product. At Battery, I was an investor in a company called OpsGenie, which Atlassian acquired. I think it's likely that the model will move towards a more compute-centric basis in a similar way that today people pay for Snowflake or Databricks or AWS services. You'll probably end up looking at the amount of compute required to for these agentic operations, especially if they're hosted, and then build some kind of margin in on top of that. And of course, for companies that are more workflow centric, those tend to be stickier and sort of have more pricing power.
Yeah. So let's do a couple more of your examples of what you've invested in.
Sure. So at Battery, I was an investor in a company called Packet, which was a bare metal hosting provider, which was acquired by the large data center company Equinix. The two founders there, Zach and Jacob, are good friends and have gone on to found a company called Datum. And Datum is a sort of CDN, modern CDN without the content. So it's a delivery vehicle for
Mm-hmm.
developers. And increasingly today, the definition of developer is rapidly changing, right? So your vibe coders, your users of Lovable or whatnot, who are building applications and then want to have them instantly deployed and highly performant globally, and yet don't want to understand or need to understand the complexity of the internet, how it really works, peering, DNS, interconnection, all of the plumbing that underlies a globally deployed infrastructure. And so
Mm-hmm.
the goal in Datum is to abstract that, for developers, and very aware that the sort of definition of a developer is changing rapidly, and the kinds of applications, the AI native applications they're building, is also changing rapidly.
And they're going to market through hosting providers, or how are they going to market?
They're still building the product, and we're experimenting with a number of potential go-to-markets, but I think it's possible they'll go to market through other SaaS vendors or also direct to consumer and not consumer, but direct to developer and build a community in that way. Perhaps similarly to the way that products like Vercel or Supabase go to market.
Okay. Is there a first-time founder in your portfolio that you would like to talk about? These two are both repeat founding teams.
Yes, they are both repeat founding teams. Let's see. I have a company called DataFlint in Israel, and the founder is a first-time founder. He was previously at a company called Granulate, which Intel acquired, but he wasn't the CEO. He was sort of the lead data scientist. And we're building a tool for optimization of Spark. So whether the Spark jobs run on Databricks or on AWS, or perhaps you're hosting them on your own infrastructure, leveraging open source Spark, it's really a tool for debugging performance problems and deep optimization across infrastructure, application code. So he's a highly technical founder, first-time CEO, solo founder, a strong sort of first employee who is effectively a founder, employee one, or kind of like a co-founder, to have somebody to be two in a box with.
Solo founder is something we have been supporting all along. We started 1Mby1M in 2010, and we've always supported solo founders. But as you know, the industry did not. There was a lot of pushback against solo founders. Everybody wanted founding teams, co-founder teams, 2 or 3 people. So now, though, that is changing. That seems to be shifting. There are a lot of solo founders doing a lot of stuff very quickly and making great progress.
Yeah, I think, in general, I'm not dogmatic about teams or solar founders. I'm certainly comfortable working with solar founders. I think you're right. The amount that a single developer can accomplish now, particularly with modern code gen tools, has increased dramatically, in the past 2 years, right?
Yeah.
And
Immensely.
we've seen shifts like this in the past, when cloud came to be, when AWS came to be, right? The velocity and team size required to build, a modern SaaS application, accelerated greatly, right? You didn't have to buy hardware, you didn't have to deploy infrastructure. And that was a great thing for the industry and allowed many more people to attempt startups without raising as much capital. And I think the same thing is happening now. It's another paradigm shift, but it's, again, one that makes it much easier for a smaller number of people with a smaller amount of money to test out ideas and businesses. And on the whole, as a venture capitalist, that's a great thing. More people can take more shots on goal more easily, and I'm excited
So
about
let me ask you some of the broader trend questions and how you're processing all this. As we discussed earlier, what the market is currently in a human in the loop, highly domain specific and domain expertise oriented businesses kind of space. Now, the logical next step is going to be more automation, especially as agents become more active inside of applications. So how do you see that playing out on many fronts, including enterprise adoption, including price structures, and so on?
Yeah, I think, right, for sort of each domain, like I'm an infrastructure guy, so if I think about each domain and infrastructure, there are many companies similar to you describe, human in the loop augmentation and potentially agentic replacement of data analysts, of SREs or DevOps practitioners, of security analysts. And I think particularly in business critical systems, people are always, automation is not new. And so there has historically been a reluctance to, completely turn the machines loose, which has had human in the loop, which has had perhaps agents describing what a possible security remediation should be, but asking a human operator to approve that action, something like that. Same thing on the DevOps side. So I think that phase will continue, for a reasonable amount of time in infrastructure and sort of business critical operations. I think for situations where there's more margin for error, then I think people will be more comfortable letting the machines make autonomous decisions. And it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
What is your assessment? You must be making some assumptions on timeline.
Yeah, I mean, things are accelerating so rapidly now. It's hard to pin it down with any specificity, but in the phase of a new investment I make today at the seed stage, right? Which if a company is successful, could be 5 to 7 years, potentially
Yeah,
even more.
absolutely.
I think it's possible that we make this transition if people can build around the appropriate, guardrails, and ultimately build confidence in initially turning over sort of low stakes decisions to agentic operators, and then build that trust over time, the same way you would build trust over time with a junior engineer as they gain more expertise and experience. So I feel like that transition, certainly will happen, probably in the scope of some investments that I'm making now.
Yeah. And there is in dinner parties, at least, I don't know what you're seeing in Boston, certainly in Silicon Valley, in my close circle, I'm having lots of conversations that point towards AGI, super intelligence, whatever you call it, in the next 5 to 10 years, which is going to be another monkey wrench in this whole process, if that happens that quickly.
Yeah, I'm not.
You don't believe that's going to happen?
I don't know. I'm not a big believer in the philosophical, nature of what is consciousness and superintelligence and AGI. At the end of the day, these systems just multiply a bunch of small numbers by each other, and with incredible benefit. And so I think it will be fascinating to see, and it's a great opportunity for founders and investors. But I don't tend to dwell on the semantic debate around, what is consciousness and AGI.
No, I'm not at all interested in, I mean, academically, at least in the context of startups, I'm not interested in the definition of what is consciousness, but there is a tremendous, very fast development, very fast automation opportunity that will emerge as the intelligence level of these systems dramatically improve. And then comes a lot of questions, right? There's a lot of
And there's
questions.
no doubt that the modern machine learning and AI systems that people have already built have surpassed human capability in many domains.
Absolutely.
And that will continue to be the case. So it's just a question about what people believe the rate of change there. And then on the buyer side, their trust and confidence turning over business critical activity of different severities or importance levels to agentic operators.
Yeah. So I'll tell you how I'm thinking about it, and you can tell me whether it resonates or not. The first change is going to be on the customer front, right? The customers will start getting, right now, the customers are much more comfortable with human in the loop. I'm doing a lot of case studies that are, automating something, but it's basically automating the things that the humans do and just making them able to do more things and so on and so forth. So it's very much not disrupting the workflow. But as customers get more comfortable and AI gets more powerful, that starts to become more full automation, not just and human replacement, not just human augmentation. So that's one change that will come somewhere in the next, God knows, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. It's that change is inevitable. It is going to come. Then there is another change that is, we are seeing all these case studies of an incredible amount of software being developed using AI at an architecture and design level, using AI at the coding level, and especially in the hands of really good engineers with a lot of experience. The vibe coding thing is very powerful. In the hands of amateurs, it's not as powerful because it's generating a lot of garbage code, very fragile code, very weak code that is going to break and going to create problems. But in the hands of sophisticated engineers, it's really changing how software development is happening and the productivity that we're getting out of software development. And that trend is going to continue.
Absolutely. I see this across my own portfolio. I have a company in the security domain that I think today is their 8th birthday. And they are very aggressive in leveraging modern code development tools and have, built the entire front end with the half-time designer and cursor basically, and have gotten to their first customer PO at one of the fastest rates I've ever seen. So absolutely, that accelerant is there, and all of my companies are making use of that. And then they can bring up, yes, questions, as you say, around code quality, debuggability, maintenance, all kinds of sort of downstream issues. But these are issues that have existed, and we have tools, and we'll develop tools to address them.
So the real question then is, in the vintage that you are currently investing in, that's going to start maturing in the 5 to 7 year period. AI is also maturing greatly. When it comes to acquisitions, it complicates the build versus buy question quite a lot, right?
Yeah, there is a theory that people will do a lot more building because they perceive the cost of doing so to be greatly decreased. I can see that in certain domains. I also have a number of investments and thesis around, AI efficiency. So, right, the world is spending many hundreds of billions of dollars now building out data centers and buying GPUs and networking to connect them. And in the same way that there was, VMware to drive virtualization and increase utilization of servers, I'm looking at, I have invested in one, and I'm looking for more companies that are interested in GPU efficiency, systems level efficiency, which is directly related to the economics of any modern SaaS company who has inference, now reasoning with test time, compute scaling. All of these things drive cost up, and it's important that they, as users of GPUs, or people who are owning GPUs and providing them as a service, have a good handle on their unit economics, and I think in general are looking for tools to drive up that utilization, reduce their cost of goods. And I think you're right; those type of tools will only increase the demand because, as you've probably seen, right, LLM inference price has been dropping at a dramatic rate. That increases adoption, and that cycle is only going to continue.
Yeah. No, I think that those are new things. Those are not necessarily gaps in people's portfolios, but I think a lot of our industry has been based on, somebody would build a product that fills a gap in a larger company's portfolio, product roadmap, and the build versus buy decision is going to go in favor of them as a buy. It's a faster time to market, but that equation, maybe it will last for another couple of years, 3 years, but as intelligence grows severely higher, that decision is going to start to get muddy.
Yeah, I can see that, and I think it will be very interesting to play out, whether smaller, fine-tuned or reinforcement learned models that are domain specific, how they continue to perform versus the, 4.0 and open source, llama iterations, and so that could be that's a potential angle for the domain specific companies continuing to have an advantage. Over in a acquisition scenario.
But a lot of the larger companies also have huge domain-specific intelligence. If you look at Aviva, for instance, it has tremendous domain-specific intelligence because it grew up as a vertical SaaS.
Yes, that's where the most opportunity is, right? Like bringing the right ML talent, the right domain-specific understanding, and kind of bringing that combination together.
And all you need is a small language model. You don't really need the large language models to get tremendous value out of it.
Yeah, and that's not a space that, I don't invest in vertical SaaS.
Right.
So
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
You mentioned that. But the verticalization exists within in terms of a small language model, that the small language model is applicable, that concept is applicable in your domain as well. It has its own domain-specific language and vocabulary and so on, data structures. All right. Well, is there anything else that I haven't asked you about that you would like to discuss?
No, I would just say that, I had never started a company before. And so I see why founders love it and get addicted to it. It's been an amazing journey. My empathy for the founders I work with has increased tremendously as my own entrepreneur of sorts. And if you're a technical founder working on infrastructure software, feel free to reach out.
We have companies in exactly that space, so I've made a very good note in my head to include you in that space, in that outreach. All right, well, nice to meet you, Alex. We will see you on LinkedIn and then have you back in a year. But I always, everything is moving so fast. I bring people back to say, "Oh, what are you seeing?"
I look forward to it. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for coming.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Folks, I'll quickly walk you through how to use 1M and then we will wrap up. Today, we do not have any conversations with entrepreneurs. So 1M is a virtual accelerator. Everything is available on 1Mby1M.com. Premium is the full acceleration program. It includes roundtable mentoring, investor introductions, curriculum, and influencer marketing. Basic is curriculum only, no mentoring, no introductions. You can use both, either premium or basic. You can come in through basic, upgrade to premium, whatever you want is fine. If you're looking for one-on-one consulting, we do have that. It's more expensive. And we have another 6 roundtables this summer. So 2 more in July and 4 in August. So if you're looking for a slot to present, please sign up and Maureen will find you a slot. If you have questions after this session, Irina Patterson is your contact, irina@1mby1m.com. That is pretty much all for today. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.